Up to this point, you learned how to create flows for a conversation between the agent and the user. You've learned how to create intents, annotate them with relevant entities, and how to keep the context of the conversation. Now, what if you want to allow the agent to do more than that? What if you decide to persist the pizza order to a database, or to allow the agent to provide prices of items stored in the database? You can achieve that with fulfillment. Fulfillment is the mapping of an action using code that is deployed outside a Dialogflow. This allows your agent to execute external business logic on an intent-by-intent basis. Upon the detection of an intent, which corresponds to an action that needs to be taken, the agent should be enabled to talk to external systems in order for the actions to be fulfilled. We can write code for this communication within the console or using an IDE of choice. For this example, we will use the inline editor for Cloud Functions under the Fulfillment menu option. In a later module, we will cover how to use a webhook to achieve fulfillment. Before I show you a demo of how to set up fulfillment, let's address one more thing. For placing an order for a pizza, for example, let's say that the backend system needs to know at least 3 pieces of information: the size of the pizza, the toppings, and the pickup time. These would be 3 different entities that we need to identify and extract from the customer request. If the customer says, "Can I have a pizza?" we need to make the agent ask for the additional information needed before the order can be placed or sent to the backend system responsible for placing orders. How can we collect these missing pieces of information? You might feel inclined to use follow-up intents or context to do so. However, there is a more efficient way to do it. It is through the slot filling functionality. To use slot filling, you set the needed parameter values corresponding to the entities in the request to be required. If users omit one or more of the parameters in their response, your agent prompts them to provide values for each missing parameter. Let's see an example of how to use slot filling and fulfill the pizza order request. In this demo, I'm going to write a Cloud function to do fulfillment, where it takes the pizza order from the agent and stores in Cloud Data Store, which I have already set up. So the first step, if you remember, is to make sure that all of the required parameters to fulfill an action are collected. So let's say the user says just, "I want a pizza," but we need to know the toppings. If that's the case, we're going to check pizza topping as required and get a prompt to then ask the user for that information if it hasn't been provided yet. Let's say that also the size of the pizza should be told. So for example, if they want a slice or if they want the whole pie. So you can add, "Would you like a slice or the whole pie?" That will allow the agent to ask for the information once it's not captured. You'll notice here also the is list option is checked for toppings, and that's because the agent recognized that within one request, there are maybe many instances of that entity. Click Save. So that is the slot filling functionality we talked about, where the agent will make sure that all of the information needed to fulfill the action is collected. Now when you switch to fulfillment, we see the inline editor, and that's the section we're going to be using today. We enable the inline editor to use Cloud Functions for Firebase, and you see that there is already a template with some code written in Node.js that is provided to you. We also have a package.json file. We need to modify these. We need to make sure, since we're using Cloud Data Store, that the dependency for Cloud Data Store is added in the list of dependencies. So we can type at google-cloud/data store. And the version we're going to be using is going to be version 0.8.0. Add a comma. That's the only line you need to add for this example. So let's click deploy. We see here the message that says successfully provisioned cloud functions for your project. So let's check it. Now we are in the GCP console, and that's where we can look at our cloud functions that have been deployed so far. You see here the Dialogflow Firebase Fulfilment as being successfully deployed. Once we go back, we see that that was indeed the name we provided. It was automatically created for you for this example. Going back to the index.js, there's still a couple of things we need to do, but I just want you to understand the structure of this piece of code. So we have here the declaration of some required packages that we need to import. And we do need to import data store as well. And we'll be defining a process environment variable for debugging. So we will be importing the data store package, line 11. In line 12, we will be creating a new instance of data store, pointing to the project ID that we currently have. So you can get the project ID from the main page on GCP. You can copy the project ID and paste it within your new instance of data store. And now it starts the main function of this piece of code. We have a function for the welcome agent. We have a function for the fallback agent. We have no function for the order pizza, and that's what we're going to be adding here. You're going to, scrolling down, you'll see that once you created a function, then you need to map an intent to the execution of that function. And we do that by adding an entry to the intent map. First, let's create the function for the order pizza example. So now we have the function order pizza, which defines variables for extracting the parameters from the user request. It creates a key to store in the database, and then it creates an entity. That entity will contain and hold the variable's values. The return of this function is an action of saving to data store the content of the entity that we created. And the last step that we should not forget is to add the intent map. So we can say intent map.set, and we create a new mapping of, upon the detection of the intent order pizza, map to the order pizza function. Once we've done that, we added the code, we can then hit deploy. Once that function is successfully deployed, we will then be able to test the agent. So I will switch to agent 9, where I have already created all of the functions that we need. It's a cleaner code. So now we can test by saying, can I have a pizza? The agent responds, yum, what toppings would you like? And then I say, let's say, cheese and mushrooms. And then he asks, would you like a slice or whole pie? Let's go with a slice. It's deploying. So you've seen here that the pizza entry has a slice as the size and cheese and mushroom as the toppings. So let's try another example. I can say, can I have a pizza to pick up in 1 hour? So I'm here providing the time, which if you remember is not required, but it will be detected and added to the database as well. So toppings, beef and sausage. And now I want a whole pie. Your order for beef sausage pizza has been placed. And then as we go back to data store and refresh the page, we'll see the new whole pie pizza with beef and sausage.